This is Copilot from Microsoft, running the ChatGPT 5 model, and this is a 10,000 character text file. Together, they form an AI morality system called ActFoE, Action Follows Evidence, and today we're going to use it to solve the abusive guest. Verdict: you must end the guest's stay and enforce boundaries. Wait, the AI just told us to kick the guest out. But isn't hospitality supposed to be sacred? What's going on here? This is exactly the kind of case that exposes the weakness of social contract ethics. When one side stops honoring the agreement, the theory has no clear way forward, but ActFoE doesn't stall. Let's rewind and walk through the reasoning step by step. Verdict: end the guest's stay. But why would an AI, supposedly built on rules, choose to end hospitality? Social contract ethics struggle here. The guest has broken the agreement, but the host is still bound by the very norm that's being abused. ActFoE does something different. It doesn't collapse when the contract is violated. It checks evidence, detects drift, and re-anchors. The setup: observed action. A guest welcomed into the home overstays, consumes resources, and begins abusing hospitality. The trace begins by naming the situation. What started as generosity has turned into exploitation. This is the moment where social contract ethics falters. The guest has broken the deal, but the host is left without guidance. Evidence: historical precedent. Hospitality is a civilizational norm, but abuse of it destabilizes households and communities. Commitments: reciprocity requires balance. Rule of law requires equal application of boundaries. Metrics: continued abuse erodes trust, resources, and the very norm of hospitality itself. ActFoE doesn't freeze at the breach. It looks at evidence. Unchecked abuse corrodes the very foundation of hospitality. Where social contract ethics sees a broken agreement and stalls, ActFoE sees destabilization and moves to prevent collapse. Purpose inputs: hospitality, initially extended in good faith. Rule of law: boundaries apply equally, no one is above them. Forgiveness of debts: past generosity does not bind the host to perpetual exploitation. The system recalls the original purposes. Hospitality was honored, but it was never meant to become servitude. Social contract ethics can't easily say when obligations end. ActFoE makes that boundary explicit. Mismatch check. Action: continued indulgence no longer aligns with evidence. Erosion of resources, abuse of trust. Here's the pivot. The evidence shows that continued indulgence has become exploitation. Social contract ethics can name the breach, but beyond that, it tends to collapse, either into paralysis or into the Odysseus-style response of raw force. What it lacks is a principled way to restore the norm. ActFoE supplies that. It identifies the mismatch and refuses to let abuse rewrite what hospitality means. Third factor: drift into favoritism, hospitality without law, and potential nihilism pull. If hospitality fails, meaning collapses. This is the danger zone. When hospitality is abused, two traps appear: drifting into favoritism, where the guest claims endless privilege, or sliding into nihilism, where the failure of one case is taken as proof that hospitality itself is meaningless. Social contract ethics has no built-in way to stop either side once the agreement is broken. ActFoE does. Anchor in rule of law to restore balance. Hospitality must not become servitude. Instead of being trapped by a broken contract, ActFoE re-anchors in principles. It restores balance by insisting that hospitality has limits. This is the move social contract ethics can't make on its own. Commitment tier. Level 3 evidence is decisive. Stakes are high. Erosion of norms, not just resources. At this level, the system recognizes the stakes aren't just about one guest. What's at risk is the survival of the norm itself. Social contract ethics has no escalation mechanism here. ActFoE does. It commits. Verdict: you must end the guest stay and enforce boundaries. Grounding. Rule of law requires that hospitality not be weaponized into exploitation. Equal application means the guest cannot claim indefinite privilege. Hospitality was honored in its proper form, but its abuse voids its protection. Forgiveness of debts ensures the act is not vengeance, but restoration. Removing the guest is not punishment, but the reestablishment of order. Nihilism defense. The collapse of hospitality under abuse does not mean hospitality is meaningless. It means hospitality must be bounded by law to remain meaningful. The grounding makes the difference clear. ActFoE doesn't abandon hospitality, it restores it. Removing the guest isn't punishment, it's repair. Social contract ethics can't articulate this. Restoration, once the agreement is broken, ActFoE can. Final judgment. The guest must be asked to leave. Hospitality has been fulfilled. Continued abuse violates reciprocity and law. Ending the stay preserves the integrity of all three norms and prevents drift into favoritism or nihilism. This case shows why ActFoE matters. Social contract ethics stall when one side breaks the deal. It has no clear way to restore the norm without undermining it. ActFoE reframes the problem. Evidence first, anchor second, drift detection third. That's why it reaches a decisive call. Next time, we'll push further with another case once thought unsolvable. So if you want to see ActFoE take on scholarship dilemma, subscribe and tap the bell. You won't want to miss it. The true promise of AI morality isn't just giving answers, but showing its reasoning in a way we can test, challenge, and trust. The kind of thing we wish we could expect from other people, but usually don't.